Welcome back, everyone, to the Decoded channel. And yeah, the show tonight is like DeFi Decoded number 15. Welcome, Hash. Welcome, Fish. How you guys doing?
Great, man. I appreciate you having me on once again. It's always a
Yeah,
beautiful time
always,
discussing
man.
DeFi,
I mean,
man.
that's your show,
Yeah,
man.
super excited. Super excited to be here.
Nice. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So yeah, so we're gonna talk about like DeFi, what you're doing with like Mad Walls, and Hash, carry your way.
Yeah. So what people don't know is I was actually on an earlier space. It was completely by accident. Actually, I tuned into Zeta Markets spaces earlier, and I talked with Blackfish a little bit. So I got the pre-alpha beforehand. I even mentioned that doing the spaces. I wanted to make sure I catch up with you guys before doing this one, so we had the whole scoop for everybody. But yeah, it's something that I've been discussing with Blackfish for a long time. A really huge fan of what they're doing over at Zeta Markets and what's going on with Mad Wars. And you know, I think it's important to bring NFTs into DeFi, as we've seen. You know, with NFT 5 being exploding, right? That's proven to be the right move to go. So I'm super hyped to get into this today. It's going to be definitely a super fun one. Blackfish, just to start things off, tell us about who you are and your journey in DeFi and how you got here today, because it's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, definitely. So Ash knows Ash knows my story. We kind of went back and forth on our respective backgrounds, and so I'll sort of start with the present and then go to the beginning. But yeah, so like right now, Blackfish, I'm doing a lot of work related to data science and growth at Zeta Markets on Solana. So you don't know, we're a perps dex. That's the core thing that we do. And so everything that's kind of happened in my DeFi, NFT, Web3 journey has sort of built up until this moment. So I started in crypto back in like 2017, primarily just retail. Back then, probably the biggest thing you could do was like crypto kitties. I still remember when crypto kitties just basically completely shut down Ethereum, like totally
Yeah.
unusable for a long time. And so picked up some ETH back in 2017. Just I was really enamored by the idea of like smart contracts and like all the potential that was possible with them, and kind of held that for a while and rode the wave up in 2017, 2018, and then all the way down, and just sat through that bear market, and um, that was pretty tough. But then things started to kind of rebound, and we had DeFi summer, and I started exploring applications on Ethereum, different things like Alchemix and
Hmm.
Tokamak, and just different stuff. But eventually, it all kind of came to a head between kind of the NFTs ramping over there, and other things. Gas was just kind of untenable, and that's when I discovered Solana back in like early 2021. And that was kind of a big awakening for me, because I was able to bridge over what were at the time, relatively small sums of funds, and try out a bunch of different DeFi primitives that just didn't really make sense on Ethereum. It's just too expensive, not
Hmm.
moving enough money for it to make sense. And so the very first thing I did was basically liquid staking. I think Marinade was still relatively new, and so staked some Sol with Marinade, had some MSOL. I believe at the time Marinade was promoting what was Orca's like Whirlpool's product, their V2.
That's
And I was
cool.
like, oh, that looks cool. They're offering like, 90% APY. Like, what's that about? Um, so dump some funds into Orca Whirlpools and let that kind of stew for a little bit. Totally ignorant of like impermanent loss and other kinds of
Hmm.
concepts like that. And so it kind of worked out, because at the time Orca had just dropped their token, and that was when it did this massive
Yeah.
ramp to like $20. Um, and so, yeah, I would say kind of after that, it was just a bunch of different things. It was swaps on Orca. It was exploring borrow lend on Solend. It was before Friction went belly up, putting stuff into their DOVs. And that actually ended up being quite a successful strategy in the bear market because you basically had covered calls that were never getting exercised ever. Um, and so, yeah, it was just an interesting journey from a learning perspective. And then I'd always been interested in coming over and working in crypto. And so I just started randomly DMing people on Twitter, just saying like, "Hey, like I'm a data scientist. Do you guys have data needs? Like, have you ever tried this or that?" And you'd be amazed at how willing people are to give you a chance if you just kind of put yourself out there. And so, I've had a chance to work with a lot of sort of the OG DeFi teams on Solana. I've worked with Orca, Solend, done some stuff for Tulip. Um, just a whole slew. And I landed at Zeta back in like November of last year and been there ever since. And now we're working on making the best perps decks there is across DeFi.
That's cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And so it's that journey, and then obviously Zeta, like you just said, working to be the best perps deck on Solana. So that naturally led to what was announced today was Mad Wars, right? So that's the big point of today's show. So just tell people about Mad Wars.
Oh man.
But I know it's a pretty big task.
Yeah, what's funny is as like a highly analytical person, my natural inclination is to go super deep into the weeds on like everything. But I would say like at its core, Mad like I guess or let's start from the fundamental layer and work our way up. So like fundamentally, Mad Wars is a perps trading competition, but that is such a drastic oversimplification. Essentially, it's a team-based perps trading competition that is largely pitting different sub communities within the Mad Lads NFT collection against each other. And we've got a ton of amazing prizes. We are taking all the trading fees that are generated from the competition and sweeping the Mad Lads floor. We've got trips to Breakpoint. We've got some sick one of one in real life rugs. Just a ton of amazing things. And I think like moving it up one more layer, getting a little sort of philosophical here, is like Mad Wars is sort of a representation of what's really possible when we combine DeFi with NFTs, with what we believe is sort of best in class wallet technology and backpack X NFTs, that kind of stuff. And so yeah, there's a lot of details, but I think at its core, it's really those three things.
Yeah, and so as you mentioned, the core reason why, I mean, obviously Mad Lads is one of the most popular collections on Solana, right? Probably now, obviously DGOS left back in January, but now that they've left, like it's arguably the loudest,
Yeah.
and that's filled that void as having that biggest, freshest community on Solana as well. So was that kind of how did Mad Lads end up being the kind of framework around this competition, and how they became that framework?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's a couple of things. So I'd say one, I'm a pretty active and vocal member of that community. I've got a handful of lads myself, as you can see based on my PFP. I'm in like a bunch of the different sub communities. And so I think that leads to sort of two things. Like one, as like a business strategist and somebody who thinks about those kinds of things, I look at the kind of stuff that Armani and Tristan are building with Backpack, um, and I just see so much insane potential. Really, really, there's just a huge opportunity there. And so Mad Lads, being the collection of Backpack, obviously um, takes on kind of a level of importance that just like a regular kind of PFP project might not. But in addition to that, being a member of the community and seeing all of the energy that's in there, seeing all the different groups of people. I mean, you have people across the entire space, not just Solana, but like Web3 overall. There's this plurality of just insane talent, insane hustlers, um, And so in that sense, it just made a lot of sense, you know? I think the confluence of those two things said, "Hey, look, like, this is a group of people that we wanna get really close to. This is a group of people who, is willing to try new things, and when they find a thing that resonates with them, they will rapidly support it." And so I think there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. Those are just a few.
And what's your thesis, the investment thesis, or like a bullish case on like X NFTs?
Sorry, can you say that again? What's the
Uh,
bull case on
yeah,
XNFTs?
what exactly? Yeah, like how do you see this ecosystem like develop in the upcoming months?
And honestly, my next question was attached onto that, so I want to attach that onto that with it. What's the importance with that technology for the competition and for perps trading?
Ooh, that's a lot to unpack there. Okay, let's start with the beginning, which is sort of like the bull case on XNFTs.
Hmm.
Um, so I was writing something about this the other day, and I think it's this idea that like so if we think about NFTs kind of in the simplest terms as they've historically existed, for the most part, we could basically call these like tokenized communities, right? Like you've taken communities
Yes.
and you've tokenized them, right? And so XNFTs basically extend that model, except now you've got tokenized code and communities bundled together. And so it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. And so I think the analogy that people are particularly fond of using is like Backpack is basically the iPhone moment for Web3. And I
Mm.
definitely think that's possible, right? You can create standalone XNFT applications that people can go download from like a decentralized app store. And that's totally a possibility. But in addition to that, there is this community component. And I'll give you an example. So right now, the Backpack team is developing a feature. I don't remember the exact name, but essentially it's this ability to create sort of like a wallet inside of the wallet. Like your Mad Lad can have a wallet. And so, like, let's follow the line of thinking there, right? So, if the Mad Lad itself can hold a wallet, and let's say that this wallet that the Mad Lad is holding can have all these different things in it, right? Like you can airdrop, like vested tokens, you can airdrop other XNFTs, you can do assets from games, all these kind of things can be held by the Mad Lad, right? Then let's say I'm a company and I want to do some sort of like targeted marketing, right? One, um, I can do something that's never been possible in Web3 before, which is like today, the best we can really do is try to look at a set of wallets and look at different activities they've done, see what kind of different assets they're holding, and do our best to reach those groups. But we don't really know what relationship those groups may have to one another. For the first time, we're going to be able to actually target a group of individuals in a way that is very reminiscent of sort of like Web 2 style targeting. And so you can actually reach people
Mm.
um, who may actually have like a very strong relationship to kind of the product you're selling or giving or relationship you're trying to establish. And so I think there's a lot of things here. I mean, people will talk about like token gated access to like content and videos and services. I think
Yes.
that's part of it. I think for us, like one thing that we're considering is like um, sort of like rev shares. Like one idea we've been kicking around is like after the competition, we may create some sort of soul bound contract that essentially says like forevermore, the holder of this Mad Lad, every time they trade on Zeta Markets, they will receive 10% of their trading fees either back to their wallet or back to the sub community treasury, however we set it up.
Mm.
But to me, that's just like there's so much flexibility and creativity at your fingertips in terms of what you can, design and create. It's just a whole new paradigm, I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely adds another creative layer to NFTs as itself. I remember seeing, um, specifically for us at Divine Dogs, since we have a lot of our literature content I saw an XNFT of actually the Monkey DAO newsletter, and I'm like, dang, that's super cool. Like having the newsletter airdrop to certain people's wallets when they sign up for it. I was like, dang, we gotta eventually get on that in some type of way. But so tying that, kind of coming back to my question, tying that into how it relates to Mad Wars, you touched on it a bit with how that soulbound of having a reflection of their trading fees would. So is that kind of a bit of alpha per se about how people could benefit from that during a perps competition, obviously on Zeta?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, right? Like I think like I want to step back and I think answer your original question, which was like, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the way I heard it, it sounded like the spirit of the question is like, what uh, what is unique about XNFTs that you feel like you want and or need as part of this competition, as opposed to just doing it like a regular trading competition? Like, hey guys, show up, trade. There's a leaderboard on our webpage. Have a nice day. Um, I think it's interesting because I was writing yesterday about how actually for the Mad Wars, I would argue that we haven't actually gone all in here, right? Like we haven't ported our entire app into an XNFT. We haven't ported even the entire Mad Wars experience into an XNFT. And so I think I would first start by saying that in a lot of ways, this is us trying to sort of experiment and learn and understand, um, what's possible here, and what resonates with users and what parts of applications do really well with sort of an XNFT style format and what don't. So like I would say like a good example of something that is kind of novel that we couldn't do otherwise is for our trading competition, we are handing out whitelists. And these whitelists confer different sorts of access to prizes and levels of the competition. But regardless of which whitelist a user holds, on mint day, when they mint their competition XNFT, they're going to go through like an experience where, for anybody who minted Mad Lads, it's going to be very similar. They're
Mm.
actually going to have like an app like experience in the wallet where they're going to pick a team and there's going to be like a game that confers some sort of reward. And they're going to have all of that happen in their wallet. Um, and then when they're finished, they'll close it up, their whitelist will be gone, and boom, there will be the competition XNFT, which will be kind of the source of truth for the leaderboard throughout the competition. And so I think like in some ways, could we replicate some of that in like a more traditional setting? Yeah, we could. But then we don't leave ourselves the possibilities of taking advantage of all the other kind of technical potential that XNFTs can offer. Because at the end of the day, the way I've imagined some of this like rev share stuff that I had mentioned about previously is like, if we don't create the competition XNFT and we just do it kind of standard style, then we wouldn't have the optionality to then take that competition XNFT and bind it to their Mad Lad, for future use cases. And so I'm definitely not sitting here telling you that we were XNFT maxis for this competition,
Mhm.
but it was really about trying to learn and see where the fit is, and where we can take best advantage of what the technology offers.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like with the XNFT, so again, like you can also like have points or stuff like that, like an history of like attributes that you can't have in the metadata of the NFT. That's yeah, okay.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's actually kind of it too. You're hitting on
Mm.
it there, but it's like these these things that people have historically like not owned, right? Like when I go onto like a website and I earn points,
Yeah.
like I don't own that, right? The site does. They have full
Yeah.
control of it. Whereas like if the things that I accrue end up being these tokenized things, they can actually be owned
Mm.
by an asset of mine, right? Like I have custody of them.
Yeah, but like also if the like the layout behind it. So like the application closed door. Okay, so you still have your fucking point, but you have nowhere to use it. So it's useless anyway, right? That's the like it's kind of I was thinking about that for games. Like like the asset, like for example, I have a sword, like the interoperability between games and stuff. So you have like one sword that you can use into another game. But if both game doesn't exist anymore, then the sword doesn't matter, right? Because I have nowhere to use it. So if we have that the same similarity for X NFTs, and then you have like attributes point or like the history of like some trading competition that you have done. If you don't have the company on top of that, then it's kind of useless to it. That's kind of the limitation I can see for that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think that's just the reality of sort of like
Yeah, 100%.
any type of application, Web
Yeah.
2, Web 3 doesn't matter.
Mm.
But yeah, it's fair. That's true.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely see how X NFTs can 100% streamline the process, right? Like the points or any type of tracking with the different trading. Like you're not going to have to, if you want it to be by NFT specific, you're not going to have to manually check and be like, okay, so now the NFT's in this wall, this has to change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's not, you completely take away a step, and it streamlines a lot of the functionality. And you're right, it has a lot of technical possibilities. Like I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like with how say like a dead god still had a YouTube, right? Like he could still have that and it'd be in within his wallet. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like he can have his revealed you within his dead god already. Like back when obviously they did it, but it could be revealed within that specific dead god and be attached with that dead god the entire time. So I definitely see. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was cutting you off, but that's what happened with like MATLAB Reveal, right? Like when the whole application was inside the wallet and stuff, and inside the wallet, not the NFT itself, but like that was huge, man. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
sorry, I was sort of attaching that with this. So, so that being said, I see the streamline. I see why we're using XS NFT. I understand obviously using their NFT to attach a technology like that makes 100% sense. So we know why it's Mad Labs. We know why it's Mad Wars. So kind of getting into this. So everybody knows right now that it is a Mad Labs, Mad Wars, a perpetual trading competition within this ecosystem. What's next? What's the first thing that's coming out with this? And is it just for Mad Lad holders? Are those the only people who can participate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we tried to strike a really good balance with the way that we structured it, and I went back and forth on this on a couple of different iterations. Um, just trying to think about through like kind of the core elements, which is like we want this to be something that's very special for Mad Lad holders. We want it to be meaningful to be a Mad Lad holder as part of this competition. At the same time, it's definitely really difficult and a bit unfair to ask somebody to spend 100 Sol just to get into a trading competition. Not a lot of people have that kind of chunk of change laying around. And I think, as you and I have talked about, accessibility is a very core tenet of mine and of this competition. And so, what we've done is sort of, I think, struck a balance where we can try to get the best of both. That is to say, because of the way the game is structured, if you are a Mad Lad holder, you get access to the team component of the competition, which means all those trading fees I talked about earlier, where we're going to take them, sweep the floor, raffle off lads. Only members of the team competition will be eligible for that. And so that's a pretty special possibility. There's really cool stuff involved there. That being said, non-holders do have a couple of pathways to getting into the team game. Well, actually, I guess one core pathway. So we have this concept of recruitment. Each Mad Lad team is being given a certain number of what we call Mad Recruit tokens. And so basically, if you're, a really Chad trader, or, like your buddies with one of the team leads, or however it is, If you're given one of these Mad Recruit tokens, that is you.
Oh,
I
Fish,
think
did we lose
we
you?
lost you. Yes, completely lost you. Yeah, that's sad.
Oh,
Is it off?
let me check on the spaces. You know, I
Yeah.
throw my.
Yes. No, it's still here.
I wonder if his laptop perhaps
Yes, I think that's what's up. Blackfish, can you hear us on the space? No, I don't know. Oh yes.
Yeah. I can hear you on the space, guys. I'm trying to log back in here real quick.
There we go. Actually, it is very clear. I didn't.
See?
Yeah.
It works.
We haven't tried this before. But yeah, no, he's extremely clear on this. I didn't expect that.
We can continue like that if you want. Like it's fine. Okay, it's coming back. Yeah, can I wait for a couple of seconds? Like in the chat, if you have any question for Blackfish, just do not hesitate to ask away. Blackfish, you're here? I can see him on speaker. You okay, bro? Okay, is back to listener. Oh, okay. Completely. That's sad. Okay, let me invite him back as a speaker. Yes, requested. Should be fine.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. Ash, you good? You can hear him.
Sorry
right?
about that, guys.
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. So you want to stay on space?
Sweet.
It's completely fine.
Yeah. I'll stay
Okay.
on the space.
Okay, cool. So,
Awesome.
what
Okay.
you
Where
were
was
saying?
I?
At the competition, right? Like the competition aspect of it, you need to be a holder or not, and you have advantage of like being part of the team in the trading competition.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, we've given these Mad Recruit tokens to team leads, and we've done this for two reasons. One, it creates kind of a point of differentiation for teams.
Mm-hmm.
So they can go and compete on the basis of who can recruit the best traders, while at the same time, it affords non-holders who are good traders or who can convince people they're good traders the opportunity to get on the team game when they might not otherwise be able to. And so outside of that, we do have one additional whitelist token called the MAD Trainee token. And so anybody who's holding a MAD Trainee token, while they don't have access to the team game, they do have access to the competition. And we still will be giving out some pretty sick prizes for the global leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a couple of paths to participation, some better than others.
Yeah, that's good. Can you do copy trading?
Well, it's a good question. I suppose you could. We're going to have a trading feed. We haven't decided how latent we're going to make the feed. So maybe we will make the feed latent enough where copy trading might not be effective, depending on how fast the market moves. Still TBD, but definitely an interesting question.
Yeah, what super interests me is, okay, so obviously the MAD Trainee token is for someone who is trying and is putting in the effort to learn perpetual trading, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And so from there, obviously not everybody is going to be a superstar perpetual trader. Some people are trying to learn. Some people might not be interested in perpetual trading per se, but they want to be involved in the prizes, right? Like these are obviously super incentive prizes. Excuse me. I'm really interested to see as these teams get bigger, as competition gets bigger, and these teams become more solidified, more organized. Like just on the spaces earlier, people are getting obviously super serious about it because of the great prizes, right, and the different things that can come. Because obviously, the more trading that happens, more volume on there, the more fees, the more things you guys can do. You can build out different prizes, different type of incentives, etc. Right? So the bigger these teams come, I'm interested to see how, what if there's even like a manager role on the team, right? Trying to recruit different traders on, or different areas, and like actually having this truly competitive type feel, like having a support staff for traders, right? And so these different kind of areas where it's not just traders can be involved in this, because obviously they can learn and they can do all this, but having this competitive environment, obviously it's something much more down the road, and it's a case of if Mad Wars is what we want it to be, right? But kind of having a truly team aspect, and obviously people would learn by osmosis to do these other type of things, I think is really cool to see, and something that is in the spirit of NFTs, but is not really seen, and there's not really like a competition, competitive spirit like that within NFTs yet.
Man, I love that. That's so interesting. I hadn't even really considered that dimension, but it's an interesting point, right? Because maybe the pitch you're making to teams is like, hey, look, like, I don't know a lot about trading, but I'm a damn good researcher. And like, do you need me to go research the market? Like, do you need me to go see what's happening? Like, it's an interesting take on it, right? Because if the goal is to make the team successful, then maybe there are ways to contribute value beyond simply having like a banger P&L. And so, man, that's good. I'm going to think on that, because that might be something interesting for the teams to consider as they're, developing their recruitment strategies.
But having a good P&L is fun too, right?
It's funny because there was a guy, I don't know if you heard this guy, Ash, earlier, from, oh gosh, I don't remember, levered what? I don't know. But I was telling him that like part of the thesis around this is that like, I always like to use a casino as an example. And it's like, hey, like if I'm just a guy, I go to a casino by myself, win or lose, let's say I win, right? Like it's great. I won some money. I had that dopamine hit. I go home, a month later, I've forgotten about it. Scenario 2, I go to the casino. I've got 4 or 5 of my best buddies. We all hit it big. We go grab drinks. We just burn through all that cash. But we've created like a memory amongst all of us about like how fun that experience was. And that's sort of like some of my thesis around social investing. And he was just like, nah, I want to be the guy at the craps table. Everybody's just like around blowing on my dice, just like cheering me on.
Yeah, I think it was.
So some people definitely want just like, they're like, I'm here for the P&L. That works for me.
Yeah, and that's kind of, people look at it obviously a different way. Like we were talking about earlier, is like obviously the majority, almost every, I'm not even gonna say majority, everybody's here to make money, right? And so, but people can make money in different ways. Like obviously him is like, okay, I'm gonna get the best traders, and I'm gonna try to trade the best, no matter what. It's like very single dimensional, one dimensional on that aspect. Obviously what I'm thinking of in your example was actually perfect, and the more realistic one is where, okay, yeah, I'm not the best trader, but I'm a fantastic researcher. I can get you the information that you need to know to make the correct trades, right? Like that's something that I think would be super unique. But yeah, like having that team experience, but obviously people having different perspectives of looking at it. I'm hoping that as it's so competitive, and as people are trying to earn these things, earn these prizes, excuse me, that there becomes different evolution of strategies, and almost like a meta within these within these competitions. But you mentioned go ahead.
Oh no, I just want to say one quick thing about that, because that's sort of a nice segue. Actually, when I was writing up the docs for the competition, one thing I was wondering about, and this is sort of interesting, and there's like, I guess some aspects of game theory here, is that like, I wondered, will teams collaborate together to develop strategies like, hey, okay, like we've got this amount of dollars to work with, like you guys long here, we're going to short here, like creating kind of these like delta neutral strategies, But, it's tricky, right? Because if you do that, then on an individual basis, somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong, which means like team P&L may look great, but then individual P&L looks terrible for somebody. And so it was just like, okay, like what are teams going to optimize for? Like, is it just going to be kind of like every person for themselves? How are they going to behave and organize? So yeah, it's just kind of funny you mentioned that.
What do you have any rules in like trading? Like for example, like you have to respect a certain like risk reward ratio or like even leverage, or is that like do what the fuck you want and try to have a big P&L, guys?
Definitely more of the latter.
Okay.
I would say the only rule that we have, which I said it on the space earlier, I'll say it again, is like, it's very important to me that we try to respect the integrity of the competition as much as possible, because at the end of the day, we all hate getting shit on by whales and whatever, it's like, oh, I just got dumped on, you know what I'm saying? And like, that doesn't feel very good. And so one rule that we do have is no wash trading. So like if you're just some schmo at the bottom of the leaderboard, just washing volume like crazy, that's an automatic DQ, because people will do that just to like get their numbers up for the raffle, which is not what we want.
And how do you detect wash trading?
Yeah, we've got some stuff on the back end where we can kind of look at accounts and see what their activity is doing. We've actually kind of been talking, we've talked about this with the guys at Tensor, because they're obviously trying to solve a similar problem for like point farming and other kinds of things. So it's not the easiest thing to do. It's definitely not a 100% solved problem, but at a minimum, like we're going to be keeping an eye out for it just to do our very best to maintain the integrity of the competition. And the other thing that we've done to try to counterweight for that is making team performance matter. So like, for example, we have volume multipliers based on whatever place you finish in. And so, for example, the first place team gets a 20x multiplier on their volume. And so, like, if you're I forget what the example is, I have it in the Git book, but right, like, I think like, if you think about it like this and you're like, if there's a team that does like $10 million in volume and they're in last place, get no multiplier, and there's a team at the top of the leaderboard that does, let me do the math here, that does, what would it be, $500,000 in volume, but comes in first, then their odds of winning the raffle as teams are effectively equal based on the volume multiplier the first place team receives.
Okay.
And so, we're trying to make it so that performance really does matter.
Okay. And we have like a little comment from Mr. Rob. You can capitalize on the spread being delta neutral. I have no idea when he posted this comment, but very important.
Yeah, he said that. I was looking at the chat. He said that in comment to when Fish, you said that there could be teammates who are maybe that they discuss and like, okay, let's strategize. One's going to go long, one's going to go short here, and Rob saying that you can't capitalize on the spread being delta neutral.
Makes sense. Thank you for the
context.
context.
I think probably what I was thinking about more is like people who this is like probably a much more advanced strategy than I would say the majority of people would take. But you could also do like funding rate farming, where like you could go long on like a perp and you could short spot or vice versa. And then depending on like the way the funding rate is, positive or negative, you could farm it. So I think there are things you could do. And I'll be honest, I'm not an advanced trader. That is not who I am. And so I think there are probably gigabrains out there much more sophisticated than I am who can come up with better strategies. I guess the point is that like you could do partial hedging where you're like, all right, some people go up like this, some people go a little bit down like that or whatever, depending on which way you think the market is biasing. And you could hedge some of your losses depending on the way that price moves.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a fair point.
And are you a profitable trader?
I have been. I have been a profitable trader at points.
Okay.
I haven't been doing it for very long, to be honest with you. And I sort of like there are times when I'm like very active, and then there are times when I like move my investing strategies to other surfaces. But yeah, it's been okay sometimes.
That's good. But you know what they say, like a good player is like a player who know when to stop, right? So I guess you could apply that for a trader too.
I agree with that. I'll say for anybody who's listening and who listens later that probably like the most fundamental skill you can develop as a new trader is like good risk management and going like, I think having a set of rules to adhere to is important because if you trade with emotion, that is like the fastest way to get wrecked. Because you're like, if you're down, you're like, oh, it's fine. Like the market can come back. The market can come back. And maybe you keep putting more money in and then it never does. And you either get liquidated or you just lost a ton of money. And so it's important to draw guidelines for yourselves, take the emotion out.
And personally, I have hard time like closing a losing position. Like I still don't have it. Like at the stop loss is a fucking stop loss, and like you have to close your position or you set like a auto closing position, like you sell. I never like successfully did it. I was it will come back, and then so that's why I'm diamond ending all of my fucking NFTs because that's a strategy, right?
That's right. Ride them to zero, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, it's 100 or 0. So yeah, that's my strategy.
You know what's funny to me is that there's like completely two sides of the same coin in DeFi, right? Like I am by no means a trader whatsoever. I'm completely in yield bearing. Like I would prefer everything I do to be yield bearing. But I've never traded. I consider myself very into DeFi. I know people that are big DeFi traders. I'd consider myself very much DeFi centric. And the funny thing is that the reason why I say it's two sides of the same coin is that I've seen myself, even with my yield bearing strategies, me double down, triple down, quadruple down on different things that I thought were going to turn around in the yield bearing side. It ended up me getting wrecked. And that's like just how trading can do the exact same thing. So I think that's a really funny connection.
And Rob, like I think Rob like play with a couple of position because you have some nice comment. Like it's a stop loss until you move it. That was what I was doing before.
Let me just move it down like 5%. 10 more percent. It's fine.
Exactly.
It's fine.
It will come back. It's fine. I didn't hit my stop loss. It's a trailing stop loss, right? That's what they call that. But yeah. And do you think we should trade NFT the same way we trade like DeFi and tokens? Like, for example, okay, so I have a Decoded. It was like 5. Price is like 3 SOL. We go to 10. Should I take profit or should I trade that as a shitcoin? Oh, like
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, there's like two things I think about on this. I don't know if I necessarily believe that like some of the technical analysis stuff that is done in like fungible markets and like equities and things like that. I know a lot of people believe in it on NFTs. I don't know if I do. So I don't know if it's like the sentiment that like, oh, the market's exhausted. There's probably going to be a bit of a retrace. Okay, let me sell. Then I'll buy back in at a lower price. I don't know. I think like sometimes for me, it's more about making the decision about how I'm going to handle different assets. So like, for example, like with Mad Labs, I was like, okay, I am not trying to swap out of these. I am buying this. I'm minting this. This is like a long-term hold. There's no chance I'm selling. The only exception was when I minted, I was like, all right, it's gone from 6.9 to 60. I'm going to sell this and then roll those into like a more rare lad that I'll hold longer. by comparison, I minted a couple of the Necro from the DGen Fat Cats team a couple weeks ago. But I knew immediately, I'm like, okay, like these are not longer holds for me. I'll wait and see how the market responds. And I sold them, and I made like a tidy 7 SOL profit on the 2 that I had. And I was happy with that. And that's a little bit tricky for me, because I think there have been times when I've sold and then it will run like another like 20 or 30 SOL. And I'm just like, oh man. But at the end of the day, somebody told me a while back, hey dude, like profits are profits. You just got to remember that. You got to take it and remember it's like a long-term game. And so I think it's situational. I think the more interesting question when you talk about like, do we start treating NFTs kind of like shit coins, is when we start to think about like NFT perps, which I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I absolutely love the fact that people who don't have like super deep pockets can get exposure to these instruments, because right, like if I don't have 100 SOL, I can't get exposure to a Mad Lab because I can't buy one. This solves that. The sort of negative side is that it kind of continues to propagate the commoditization of NFTs and takes away from some of the specialness, right? Like it turns a non-fungible asset into a fungible asset. And so I guess it's about pros and cons in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, like you can also have like different portfolio when you have one portfolio to trade and one portfolio for long-term investment, and both strategy are valid. Yeah. As long as you can sleep by night, it's fine.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for both. I think some people can overthink that, oh no, NFTs are just going to become shit coins and it's ruined. I think there's room for a lot. And if we want NFTs to be what they are, it's going to have to make room for that.
And but I think there is a case where like everyone is saying NFTs like via the prism of like Decoded, basically like you want every fucking collection to go to 50, 20, 100K or like a Bored Ape, whatever, at that level. And if your collection is not doing it, then it's a failed collection, right? Or like whatever. But like all of this success are like kind of an anomaly, and it's not the default, right? Like a successful collection is like going from mint price to 50 SOL, right? Like 100 SOL, like that's a massive success, right? But maybe we need to review like how like take profit. I'm not taking profit until it's 1,000 SOL. Let's go.
At a minimum. But you know what I like about that is we've seen so many collections come online, right? And I think what it naturally means is like the quality bar, whether that's fair or not, the like median is definitely slipping. And so I think if anything, this makes it so that in order to be like a very like meaningful, significant NFT collection, you have to have like a value prop that actually means something. So that could be like Mad Lads, where they're like, okay, like we've got the wallet attached to it. We're creating technology to play with it. You know, we've got a differentiated product. Or it could be like Cleanosaurs, where it's like, hey, we're actually we're creating a whole world. And so this isn't actually about a PFP. It's about like an entire world that is tokenized, right? But if you're just creating like random PFP collection number 2000, you know, like maybe you should kind of be treated like a shit coin because you kind of are, just like everybody else.
Kind of what we're doing with ordinals right now, but that's another story for another show, I guess.
All right, guys.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish that. Fish?
Oh no, I was done.
Okay.
All right. I see we are coming up on the hour, and I've 3 final things. So one thing I really wanted to get to was this unique concept that you brought up to me in one of our previous calls about social investing. So we kind of dived into the fundamentals about it a little bit, and we said the phrase once, but kind of break that down and put it all together for us.
Yeah, I just think anybody who's done kind of like retail investing in the Web2 world, I'm talking about like Robinhood, Webull, Public, any of those kinds of apps. Um, I think they've largely failed at integrating like meaningful social elements into them for a variety of reasons. Um, I think that it's largely predicated on you kind of have to like bring your friends with you, and you sort of have to initiate. You have to take a lot of the burden to create the social piece. Um, and so I think that some of the bridge here is that with these NFT communities, one, there's just like this really strong fandom, right? Like I go online, I see somebody with a lad PFP, and immediately I'm like, okay, you're my guy. Like I'm with you. Like you're a lad, I'm a lad. Let's do it. So because of the way that these communities have evolved in Web3, you sort of have this native social ecosystem where there's already like a built-in pre-existing social network of like intra-community and inter-community. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You need to find out a creative way to plug into that. And so Mad Wars is really like an experiment to test elements of this, right? Like, and I would say we're off to a pretty damn good start because the feedback that I got from people before the competition, and I think you probably heard on the call earlier today, this is probably the thing people are most excited about. They're like, I want my team to win. I mean, people are so excited. We actually had to up the amount of Mad Recruit tokens that we were allocating to teams. That's because cool. They really wanted to go recruit some like dope traders, and like that was a fundamental part of their strategies. And so I think that's the key, right? Is like social investing. What does it mean, right? Like, is it a one-off trading competition? Is it having like built-in team features into the app itself that are kind of evergreen? My thesis is that it really like NFT communities are kind of the linchpin because then it's not me showing up Blackfish with, needing to go find my friends. They're already there. And so I think there are a lot of different things that we've talked about. Like we've talked about how Web3 sort of uniquely enables, you talked about copy trading earlier, right? Like imagine I'm some dope trader. Like today I'm just going on Twitter, I'm shilling my strategies, and anybody can take them and use them. And I don't really get any credit for that. But, Web3 enables this way where like you could actually monetize your trading strategies and implement some neat copy trading capabilities. Or, you could create, there's just so much potential there. And I think because the communities already exist, the protocols that build around the social piece, they can focus on making really good DeFi applications. And then they just need to be thoughtful about the way that they integrate the two. And that's why I think like when we talk about that integration layer, that's why I'm so bullish on XNFTs and Backpack, because I think it's like this really beautiful, seamless integration layer because you're talking the same language, right? Like it's all NFTs, whether it's the application, which is the executable part, or the community, which is the NFT part, but it's all there. And so, I don't know. There's a lot more we could dig into, but that's, I think, it at a high level.
You need to come back for an episode 2, man.
For sure. For sure.
I'm in.
Let's go.
All right. So that was, man, that was a lot. We definitely, we should have made it like a special edition hour and a half episode for sure at minimum. Because I feel like there's so much stuff we didn't get into yet. And I mean but that's more the reason for not only you to come back, but for people to dive into Mad Wars and really see what it's all about, especially if they're interested in this type of competition. But
I mean, we have DeFi Decoded 16, man.
Yeah, absolutely right, man. Absolutely right. But not, just reminder for everybody, not next week. Next week is
true. Yes, true. Okay,
going to
so
happen.
the week after.
Yeah, holiday for Americans.
True.
But,
for once.
Yeah. So our final 2 points that we say for everybody. First of all, well, what's kind of the key takeaways you want the audience to come from our show today?
Oh gosh. Come try out the Mad Wars. Like shoot me a DM. Even if you're not like a trader, even if you've never traded perps before, shoot. Even if you never traded spot before, shoot me a DM. Let's talk. Because I just think at a minimum, it's just a great opportunity to like get in the social element, get in the Discord to learn. Like it's just a great learning opportunity. I think there's a lot of fun there. And then let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main one, right? It's just like don't take yourself too seriously. Have a really good time, and if you are trading, trade safely, and start with really small stacks just to get the motions down. This is not financial advice.
And respect your stop loss.
Yes. Don't have a trailing stop loss.
And then
that's right.
Well,
that's right.
Very well said. Very well said.
Trade safe, trade smart, trade to live another day.
That's right. That's right. Please.
And then our last point before we let you go, what are you most excited about in Solana DeFi outside of Zeta and Mad Wars?
Oh man, this is so hard. Gosh. What is something new that's kind of like caught my eye? Honestly, this is gonna be like I'm gonna be like a little hypocritical here, but you know, like I'm really intrigued to see NFT perps and like what adoption looks like. I think if you'd asked me that question like 3 or 4 months ago, I probably would have said like decals, because I thought the idea of like having option market for NFTs was like so sick. But the problem is like market making for that is like impossible. It's so hard. So not that, but I think generally, maybe this is an evasive answer, but anything that is pushing the boundaries of like NFTs in DeFi. And so I think NFT perps is interesting. But really anywhere where those boundaries are getting pushed, I think some of the stuff being done around like mortgages and trying to create kind of like installment loan type products for like traders to leverage and different things like that is also super interesting. I think there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I'm excited about the next 3 to 6 months.
That's cool. And if you want a contract writer, Mr. Rob is a volunteer.
Let's go. Get in my DMs, Mr. Rob. Let's talk.
Mr. Rob, DM Blackfish ASAP. You got something for you. But yeah, I guess that's it, man. Ash, do you have anything else?
No, Blackfish, I appreciate you for coming on, man. I know we're personally gonna definitely stay in touch. I'm really excited for what you guys got going on. I may not be recruited on any team, but I will for sure be a fan of one. That's for sure. And maybe that's what I can start. I can start a fan.
Well, I'm gonna drop y'all some alpha, because this is something we were just talking about literally today. But we're thinking about having like a draft, which incidentally kind of works with the whole military theme, but like a draft where we're gonna have like basically non-holders come and like pitch themselves. And then team leads are literally gonna be like, I'm gonna draft Ash, I'm gonna draft so and so. And kind of make a little event out of it. And so I don't know.
And you're gonna draft me last, and I'm gonna be sad, like in high school.
Hey, if you first or last, if you make it, you're in.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's true. There's no contract. You aren't getting paid compared on your draft. It does look cool. That's for sure.
No, you're non-guaranteed contract. You could get cut, but you never know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, thank you so much, Blackfish. That was like a real pleasure to have you on the show, man. can come back whenever you want.
Absolutely. It was a really awesome time, Blackfish. Once again, I'm really looking forward to what you guys build and how the first kind of season, quote unquote, goes for Mad Wars.
Yeah. Oh, before I forget, guys, I can't even forget this. All of everybody who's listening to this, if you've been in the show, you haven't. We got some special stuff that we're going to airdrop to a few random
Cool.
listeners. Fortunately, the audience size hasn't been too crazy, so odds are really good. So keep an eye on your Twitter DMs. Might throw something at you. But yeah, guys, I appreciate it, man. This is so fun. I could talk about this stuff all day. And so really, really appreciate you guys having me on. I'm really, really excited. I'll definitely be following future spaces and shows, and I'll keep killing it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we have more people on YouTube, so I don't know if you want to do the giveaway on YouTube too. But yeah, like the odds are looking a bit thinner if we include the YouTube stream.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Let's lump everybody together. We can can take it offline and figure out how we do it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Ash, you take it away, man. Take it away.
Yeah. Very last thing. After this show, I am gonna get together with anybody within Divine Dogs, and also I'll talk to Vince to see if he wants to do some of the same. But actually, Blackfish, they are doing in Mad Wars, they're doing different training sessions for perps, teaching people in spirit of the competition how to perp trade. So you guys are interested in that, we will be having, for everybody in the Divine Dogs community, we'll be having a vote on what's the best time you guys want to have on that. But with that all being said, next week we will not be having a show. I will be on holiday for that. We will miss there. But when we come back, we have some special guests lined up. We actually have the next 3 weeks. We have blocked away for different people that I'm really excited.
That's cool.
To have that are just as sweet as Blackfish. So really excited for that. Can't wait for it. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody on YouTube and on the spaces. And we'll see you guys the week after next.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Hash. Thank you so much, Blackfish. Everyone in the YouTube live section, thank you so much. And the comment section, thank you everyone who showed up on the Twitter space. It was a real pleasure. And we will see you when we will see you. And I have another stream in 50 minutes. We have Soul, so you can come back. Soul, check it. Thank you so much. And yeah, bye-bye. Claim your views, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Bye-bye.